Flashback 1 Windmills Over the Cliff. Flashback 1.0 The NeuroPsych Judgment. Caselli abruptly set his clipboard down on his lap and slid his pen into its clip. Your compartmentalizing the past, present, and future is another coping tool that can be very beneficial, but also bring very harmful side effects. Coping mechanisms are just like medications. Both offer help, but also at a cost. Nothing is truly free, Richard. Dr. Caselli continued to speak from his obviously power-tripping place of authority. Richard, we have discussed just a little bit about your childhood, and I appreciate we have much more to cover. However, I would like to summarize my observations at this point that I have seen about you. As I see things so far, Richard, you suffer from neurodegeneration and associated psychiatric disorders. You feel you suffered an extremely difficult, disadvantaged, tragedy-filled childhood. You have significant unresolved abandonment issues that are surfacing as your mind degenerates. You are depressed and suffer anxiety about the deaths in your family and what they might mean about your own health and your eventual death. You believe it is a good idea to compartmentalize your emotions and your traumas, using your so-named suppression bottles to focus on your imagined future instead of dealing with the real issues at hand. You bottle, seal, and bury your emotions, Richard. You bury your crises. You bury your traumas. You even bury your relationships so that you will never have to deal or see them again. You see yourself as a modern-day knight or a paladin. As a toddler to present, as a 55-year-old white male, your commitment has been unwavering to your self-identified role of hero. You have fantasized yourself as a true knight, a crusader of karmic justice, and so on. You have been extraordinarily successful despite an apparent adverse and challenging upbringing. Success came at a cost. You were a slave of duty to your career and self-proclaimed righteous path at the expense of your health, your relationships, your personal enrichment, formal education, proper church, vacations, your own pursuit of happiness, and so much more, Richard. And so, you missed much in your life to achieve your career, mission, and your secret role as this knight of karmic justice. You have, Richard, and continue to identify as being special because of some test results from when you were in high school. You participated in a California Aptitude Stanford High School program, otherwise known as the Cash P program, which concluded that you were unique in the state as possessing a one-of-a-kind, perfect 50-50 left-right brain dominance ratio, which should theoretically have been impossible per the very test design. And so, you either broke the test or you proved its very ability to identify your very extraordinary mind. You enjoy, Richard, showing people how smart you are through your tales or your feats of talent. Richard, you revel in solving others' problems. You get satisfaction from helping others. You find joy in rescuing people and projects. You love being the teacher and the mentor, the sensei. You thrill as the hero and the leader. You seek to show people how you apply your vast learned knowledge with your innate genius to achieve, in your mind, literally anything. Oh, Richard, despite your knighthood, you reject personal responsibility in your murder of a black man, striking him with a tire iron, splitting his skull. He's dead, Richard. You have appeared open and honest with me and our esteemed panel of consulting psychiatrists, Dr. Brandon Garcia and Hyder, though I do believe you have held back at times. Have I hit the mark, Richard? Would you like to change anything? Well, Caselli was right about my holding back at times, like this one. If I spoke, I would tell him that he was on a power trip and his assessment was just a steaming, heaping pile of his dung-like opinions. Everything I said seemed to always be twisted and contorted into some negative diagnosis that they would hold against me. It did not seem prudent to talk more than I had to, and I already had to talk a lot. Therefore, I was not going to talk like a fool to my jailers when it could hurt me if I didn't have to. So I replied, "No, doctor, that sounds about right. Even if it did not entirely sound right, who knows, maybe it was close enough. I guess it was right. I don't know." Dr. Caselli leaned back and pressed his pen on his metal clipboard. He looked almost uncomfortable, which seemed actually unlike the doctor, at least not the doctor I had been getting to know. "Richard," he paused, drawing a deep breath, and he exhaled slowly. "Before we go further with your childhood memories, I want to make some fundamental observations. You suffered a series of traumatic events in rapid succession. Your house was destroyed in a natural gas explosion. You lost an aunt after losing so many other family members. You lost your job. It must have been terrifying to lose your home and everything in it. Your aunt died within weeks of your home being destroyed. Perhaps before, it's unclear. Having such a close and distant loss, though, hit at once is a classic 1-2 punch that could result in a knockout punch. Leaving a job is always stressful. It can feel terrifying, losing your relationships, the stability, maybe even friends and family, all because you lost a job. You may have to relocate. Your worlds turn upside down, and there is the fear of the unknown. What's ahead? What are your financial worries? Will there be no new income? Do you have enough money to survive? Exiting a job is one of the greatest and biggest causes of stress in one's life. Well, the doctor explained further. Any single traumatic event can afflict mental disorders, including post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Wait a minute, I thought. Here we go again. Dr. Caselli's judgmental assessments that always paint me as some Looney Tune that belongs in this nuthouse. Of course, if I said anything again to defend myself, we would no doubt end up in an argument, with me losing because Caselli would inform me, as always, he is the gravitas in control of my future. He makes sure I know, often. Caselli continued. Experiencing 3 concurrent high trauma events has an exponential probability of inducing PTSD and may induce or trigger dormant mental disorders. Moreover, experiencing multiple severe traumatic events so close to each other has been shown to induce not only temporary but permanent mental disorder. And if those disorders are left unchecked, they become chronic, affecting other behaviors. Your behavioral attributes, your cognitive function, and your perception may be harmed, changed for the rest of your life. I am convinced, Richard, your series of traumatic events triggered your amazingly suppressed schizophrenia and bipolar disorders. Those disorders transitioned from interim to chronic, lifelong afflictions, both because they were unrecognized and you had already been suffering neurodegeneration for over a decade that had wore down your defenses, as you call them. Collectively, Richard, it seems like this trifecta of traumatic events directly resulted in your extreme mental illness. They cumulatively were the trigger moment when everything broke through your compartmentalized suppression bottle defenses. It resulted, Richard, in your insanity. Let me remind you of what you reject still, Richard. The court has ruled you as legally insane with the probability of recidivist criminal behavior and will remain in a maximum security psychiatric institution for care and ongoing indefinite evaluation to see if you will be allowed to return to society. Richard, you have lost many legal rights because of your legal insanity and diagnoses, like you may not own a firearm or any recognized deadly weapon. You may not attend anti-government political events or associate with criminals or terrorists. You may not run for or hold any political office. You may not vote in any election or poll. You must register with the government wherever you choose to live and wherever you are working. You must report anyone you establish a relationship with, friend, colleague, or an intimate one. You will submit to a substance abuse test as requested. Your freedom can be revoked at any time by a court or a treating psychiatrist. It has become necessary to repeat this to you in hopes you, Richard, will embrace it as the truth.